Right, hello. So this is a session about mindful eating. Okay, so probably looking at this more than you're looking at me at the moment. But the objective of this session now is, one of the things that everyone's talked about on the group, practically with no exception, is that one, you struggle with cravings, and probably not so much the craving that it's the issue, but once you give into the food that you're craving for, you tend not to have any self-control over being able to just really eat far too much of it, and that triggers a cycle of feeling annoyed with yourself and cross, angry, frustrated, and even can just make you sort of think, right, well, I've had this now, and then you just sort of go all in and go crazy on that, on that day. So what I want to talk about today is just maybe just changing things a little bit, because one tactic that people often do is try and avoid a food completely. Okay, and that can be what a diet's like. You sort of avoid, you decide you can't eat bread, so you don't eat bread for 3 weeks, and then you just realise that you just can't do that and you give in. So it's very much an all or nothing, or more like a nothing and tons of it type of approach. And that's just, that's not, doesn't work, does it? You wouldn't be on this group if that had worked for you. And you can do some things like not buy stuff in your house. Some people can't even do that, because if the kids are eating, want these sorts of foods, crisps, I've got crisps here as well. The family are going to eat bread at the end of the day, so if you can't realistically sometimes not have those sorts of foods in your house, and you're just not ever able to fully control your environment anyway. You're going to at some point go to someone's house, or a cafe or something for breakfast or lunch or whatever it would be, where you've not got an awful lot of choice anyway, and it's bread or sandwiches is the option. So what's the way around that? So one of the things that happens when you give into a craving and start to eat something is you just inhale it. It doesn't touch the side. You think about it, you really want it, you're thinking about having it, you know that's in the cupboard. It's talking to you while you're not there. You keep looking, go away, come back, keep looking, open the lid, take one, put it back, whatever the sort of little dance that you may or may not do is. But when you actually then finally give in to eating something, then very rarely do you actually even, have any feelings afterwards that are positive. You might not still feel that you're still craving, even though you've ate the thing that you wanted. You're going to start feeling cross with yourself. You're certainly not going to feel satisfied that you've sort of scratched that itch that you had. Okay, so what do you do about that? And one approach is called mindful eating, and it's the idea that you can eat things that you want when you want them, with some caveats, that you actually take your time and you really enjoy them, and you savour that thing, that treat, so that when you have finished it, the thinking here, and it's been demonstrated in practice and in research, that if you really take the time to enjoy something and think about it, you're going to feel a lot more satisfied after, and very likely you're going to find that you can tolerate it and have it and eat a lot less of it. Okay, so I'm going to just eat something. This is a tough job. Okay, bread. And this is some French stick, so it doesn't really matter, it could be anything. I just bought this because I thought, right, well, if I'm going to buy bread for this, just make it look like something that people think is really nice and really a treat, and maybe really off limits, because you might think that that's such a treat. Once you get French bread in the house, you just can't stop eating it until it's all gone. And one of the things, and I'm breaking a rule here, I've got a real crumb phobia. And I'm just looking at my floor already, knowing that I've never eaten anything in the gym anyway. And now I'm going to have breadcrumbs on the floor, which is going to freak me out. And what I would suggest that you try this with some foods that you like yourself, that you avoid yourself, actually. It's not that you like them, given that you like them, but you don't feel that you can eat them or eat them with any control. And bread certainly is something that can be like that for people. I think bread ticks a few boxes because, one, it's easy to eat. You've generally got it in the house. If you're hungry or feel like something or want something, you've probably not got a massive range of options. So just, grabbing some bread can be a very quick and easy thing to do. But I did this yesterday as well, actually, for something else. But if you're going to eat something, you want to sort of think about, people say, oh, the smell of fresh bread is amazing. You walk into Tesco's, they pump it in there. I'm smelling this now, and it smells a bit vinegary. I'm not even really that impressed by it. You might have a different experience. You might think, oh my God, that is just heaven. That takes me back to holidays or takes me back to whatever. And you're going to just take the thing that you avoid, that you really want to eat all the time, and really just sort of do a little experiment where you're going to eat it, you're going to think about it, and you're really going to notice how you feel, because you might have different experiences for different things that you're not expecting as well. So I'll give you an example from me. I don't really eat a lot of bread. My partner's gluten intolerant, so it's not something that we have a lot of in the house and don't base our meals around it. And to be honest, it's something I can take or leave. And but now and again I'll have it and I'll enjoy it, or I think I'll enjoy it. And when I did this yesterday, I was really surprised how much I didn't enjoy the bread. So this is really good quality French bread. So for one, dry as anything and really chewy. I mean, I know you could say you could stick a load of butter on it and it would taste completely different, but then it's the butter you're enjoying, isn't it, not the bread. And even now, I've got my tea here because I knew I'd need it. And I've only had a little bit. It's not something that I'm really finding that I'm that bothered about. Now, you might be the opposite. You might just think, this is amazing. And if I had a salad with a really nice piece of French bread and sort of mop up the oil and the juices at the end of it, or dipped it in some soup, that would transform my meal. And in that instance, you would go for it, eat it. If that's something that you really enjoy, really eat it and savour it and enjoy it. What you want to do is just really pay attention to how you're feeling when you eat it and what you're enjoying, because it might not be as much as you think. So, for me, this bread, normally if we had bread in the house, I would be chopping off a few bits now and again and sticking some butter on it. But actually yesterday when I did this one and I realised how dry and hard to eat I found the bread, admittedly this is a day old now, but yesterday it was exactly the same. It made me think, oh, actually, I'm going to eat calories. I'll have something else. So find the things that feel nice to you and feel good to you. Next. This is a really tough job. I'm doing it for you, you know that, don't you? But something as well, this is the sort of thing I just, didn't used to buy an awful. I don't buy a lot of it anyway, because I think the kids eat enough shit. Excuse my French. Just looking at the crumbs. But, quite a common thing that people like cake, like brownies. I mean, look at that, there's nothing in it. It's tiny. What's the calories? 38 calories in one. But the damage isn't in one, is it? It's because you just inhale a few at a time. So, but again, this is really where you can think that you would need to have half a dozen of these. If you can learn how to eat one and stop at one, then that's a big deal. So, for example, with this, again, that's got a really nice smell. That's really nice and chocolatey, and that does seem quite appealing. A lot more appealing, again, to me. And it's all about what's personal to you, than the bread. And when I'm eating a bit of that, it's very sweet, obviously, but you do get a nice chocolatey cakey smell after. But here's the thing, when you're really craving something and you really want to eat something, your taste buds are really hypersensitive at the beginning of when you eat it. So the first few bites of something are going to taste really, really amazing. So you really want to make the most of that, because that's when you're going to be at the height of your enjoyment and enjoying that thing. And this is what you want to be paying attention to, how things change over the time that you're eating them. Because what you realise is, and what you're trying to teach yourself is that, a whole tub of those, or half of them, you don't have to eat loads for you to feel really, really satisfied, and that you really feel, enjoy something and enjoy it without guilt and feel satisfied at the end of it. Okay, it can be that this, one or two, depends, how hungry you are, what you're eating it for, could just be enough. But if you're really craving something and you really took your time about eating something like this, slowly, thoughtfully, really thinking about savouring it, you actually could get a lot more enjoyment from it than just hoovering it up, feeling like you've not enjoyed it, and still feeling cravings and feeling deprived at the end of it. So that's my second bite. There's not many bites in this, but it's still a really nice chocolatey feeling. And what you might start to notice once you carry on eating something, and maybe you need to have a couple of these for this to happen, is that suddenly the chocolatey taste can go, and you get a really overpowering, sickly, sweet taste, And it might be that you then start to think, oh, it's not as good as I thought it would be. And now, after that initial hit of sort of being excited about having something that I really wanted and that I usually don't really eat or enjoy has gone, I'm starting to think how there's a little bit of an artificial sort of processed kind of flavour. And now I'm thinking it's a bit cloying in my mouth, actually, when I'm eating it. So I'm starting to see the sort of sensation of eating is starting to change over the time of eating it. And things that you enjoyed at the beginning, you're noticing that it's changing for you and you're not enjoying it as much. And where, it's a bit like going to a party. You got to go to a party and leave when it's at the height of the best bit, and you leave the party feeling like you've had a great time. Hang around too long when it all goes downhill and you're the last one there, and you're sort of leaving because you have to, and it gets a bit, it's not as good as it was at the beginning. So it's the same thing with the food. You leave it at a point where you've really enjoyed that and you feel good. If I sat here now and ate 3, 4, 5 of those, well, one I'd probably buy, and this would be the same for all of us. By the end of it, you'd just be eating them for the sake of it, and you really wouldn't be deriving any real pleasure from it. And then there'd also be a tipping point when you're then starting to actually not enjoy it at all, and you're going into a phase where you might be almost just being defiant or rebellious or punishing yourself or eating because you're pissed off with somebody else, and you're using food for that. When you slow down and think about it, you start to notice these things, and it can change the way that you think and the way you think about and manage your cravings and the food that you eat that you think you can't control. So that was something sweet can change from cloying to sick, from gorgeous, amazing to a bit cloying, a bit artificial, and those tastes will be very personal to you. I've got crisps here. I'm a big crisp fan. When I've done this exercise with crisps, after a while you start to notice the greasiness of them. Initially, I'm a big salt and vinegar fan, and you love the salt, you love the crunch, you love the sort of tang of the vinegar. That can start to make your mouth water even just talking about that. But then after a while, you might, notice that, like I say, the greasiness of it, and start to think how soaked in fat these really are. And your enjoyment can peak a lot earlier than you think, and that's what you want to do and pay attention to when you're picking up your when you're trying this on your food, your sort of nemesis foods, if you like. So that's just what I wanted to share with you. I'd love to know what you do and what you notice. What you're trying to get to with this is to lose the guilt, learn how to enjoy things in smaller quantities, and then when you can do those two things, you can incorporate those things in your diet. You can have a brownie with your coffee. You can have a few crisps with a glass of wine or a cup of tea, or after your lunch with a sandwich, whatever it would be. And you're not just inhaling, I could probably eat half a pack of those. Half a pack of those has probably got 450 calories in if I'm reading that. And, if my normal thing would be on a Saturday to eat half a pack of crisps or even more mindlessly in front of the TV and not really enjoy them, if I eat a portion of those, I'm suddenly saving myself 300 calories. I'm not giving up crisps. I'm still eating them, but this time I'm enjoying them. And that's the difference. And that's where you want to get to. And just because you're eating things like this in your diet, or bread in your diet, or crisps in your diet, overall, you can still be having a very good quality and healthy diet because this is becoming there, but just a smaller percentage of what you're eating overall. But you don't have or suffer with that because you're not denying yourselves these things or attaching a lot of guilt to them. You're able to incorporate them into your diet very healthily and very sustainably, and that can make a massive difference. Okay, so thanks for watching. Have a try. Ask me any questions that you want, and don't just do this as a one-off exercise. Next time you feel a craving or you reach for these things that you know you like, eat them slowly. Pay attention to how you feel. Notice when you're feeling maybe that they're not tasting as good as they were before, and you may be feeling a bit bored of them, and put them away. You know, have them later, have them the next day. Start to experiment and see if you can change the way you think about these foods and change the way you eat them and change the way you have them in your diet. Okay, right then, I'll see you soon.